Man, we picked a hot day to do this winch installation. You got that thing opened up yet? Not yet. We're gonna open that thing up now and finish this up. We just ran out of daylight yesterday. So just for start off here with a couple of answers, and people have been asking me a couple questions about this thing. Was there any drilling involved? Yes, there was. The fog lights, for some reason, and this is a very common issue if you read the reviews on this bumper, for some reason they didn't make the holes large enough to accept the included hardware. So the hardware they give you with the bumper won't fit the holes. So you just need, I can't remember what it was. I think it was an 1/8 inch drill bit. We just kind of reamed out the holes a little bit. There's only 2 on each side that I had to ream out. And that was pretty much it. After that, everything went together smooth, no drilling whatsoever. It slid right onto the frame horns perfectly, everything lined up. No problems at all other than the fog lights. That was by far the most time-consuming part. This bumper, there we go again. They're gonna wrestle. This bumper, 105 pounds. All of the plastic factory stuff and the metal innards that I took off, I put them on the scale, and they came in to right at 35 pounds, which is what we figured. So with this winch, 80 pounds, 105 pounds, but we subtract 35 pounds from the factory stuff, we're gonna end up about, 150 pounds of extra weight on there. I took some measurements before I put this bumper on, and right now with just the bumper on there, the front end dropped exactly 1/4 of an inch. Now I've got those 2-inch spacers up front and 3/4 inch spacers in the rear, so I'm a little bit higher in the front anyway. So after I do this, it's gonna work out just great. Man, that thing is hot. This box has been sitting in the back of the truck out in the sun today. It's about 98 degrees out here. Heat index is over 100, and everything in this box is super hot. So we brought it in the garage to let it cool off for a minute. But anyway, yeah, so now that we're gonna put this winch on there, I'm figuring we're probably gonna get a little bit more drop. So we might end up with maybe 1/2 of an inch of droop with all this stuff on the front, which is not bad. It's still gonna have a nice factory looking rake to it for hauling and towing purposes. So yeah, that's pretty much the wrap up there. The bumper was fairly simple. The hardest part, most time consuming part, was just taking out all the factory stuff. And like I was saying, I'll give you a better visual now that it's daylight. The only other thing I'm gonna do is fill in that gap back there, because you can see how those fog lights have a little cooling fan on the back of them, and all this stuff is wide open, which is not good. So we're gonna try and fabricate a little bit of a plate to put in there, and that way we can keep all the junk from blasting the fog lights. All right, so I'm gonna wrap that up now. We're gonna get this winch out, and we're gonna try and get this thing installed tonight. So a little bit of an unboxing. You wanna help me, Tucker? A little bit of an unboxing here real briefly. Of course, you got your owner's manual. Now you can, this is a wired controller. You can get a wireless controller for this winch also. It was an additional 35 bucks or something. I might eventually get one of those. But to be completely honest, I don't see myself using this winch all the time. I'm gonna be one of those occasional users. So this might end up working fine for me. Of course, here's your solenoid box. Can you go ahead and grab that and pull that out? We'll take a look at it. Might have to move some of that styrofoam first. Now the other thing about this winch, they make a 9,500 pound version of this, which is almost identical. The only differences I could find on the 9,500 pound version of this Badlands winch is that the motor was rated 5.5 horsepower, whereas this one is 6 horsepower. Pretty small difference. This one also has, see the springs there? It's got an automatic, I forget exactly what they call it, but basically on the drum here, you've got this bar that's spring loaded, and it keeps everything nice and neat. So it's supposed to prevent your rope from turning into a rat's nest. The 9,500 pound version doesn't have that either. And then the one other difference is the thickness of the rope. This is 3/8 line, and I think the other one had slightly smaller rope. I put them side by side in the store, and I could barely tell any difference. But this one is slightly larger. So those are the only 3 differences I could find. The price difference is about 80 bucks. So, you know, the 9,500 pound winch is a pretty good deal. You know, on that sale, I could have got it for 240, but again, I thought $299 was a great deal for something with this much capacity. So here's the solenoid box. Real nice heavy duty looking wiring here. Tucker, you're not helping, buddy. And you certainly aren't allowed to chew on those. And let me turn this thing over. So obviously this is designed, there's what it looks like on the front. So this is designed to sit down on top of the winch, but you can mount this wherever you want to, obviously, as long as you got room to hook up your cables and everything. So this is fairly straightforward. We got to get this out of here, and the big question is going to be, can I slide it down into here? I mean, there's not a whole lot of space between the grill and this tab for the lights now, but this is what the instructions said to do. They said to put the bumper on first and then drop the winch in. So let's see what. Okay, so got everything kind of laid out here. So the first thing I'm going to do is, if you look at the instructions, they give you a nice pretty picture here, and you can see how on the bottom of the motor, that's your ground that goes up to the battery. And since that's on the bottom, I figure it's going to be hard to get to once we put it in the truck. So we're going to go ahead and put this ground cable on here ahead of time, and that way once we drop this in here, hopefully it won't be such a big deal. Go ahead and put that nut on there. And all the other connections, of course, are on the top of the motor, so that's no big deal at all. We did a test fit of the solenoid box, and it snapped on real nice. So it looks like about a 15 millimeter maybe. See if a 15 mil will fit that. So again, this is going to be pretty straightforward. Now there's the circuit breaker they give you when you do the positive battery off of the motor. Let me try that again. The positive cable off of the motor to the battery, you're going to put that in line with it up at the battery for safety. And then all your other connections just go straight to that solenoid box. So it's pretty simple. It's just a matter of getting this big 80-pound monster down in that winch bumper. So let's give it a whirl. Okay guys, so yesterday I told you that I was going to try and leave that panel right there in place, and I did, and it worked, but I can see now why it is that you're supposed to take it off. Now that it's daylight and I got up in here, see how the top of the panel actually meets up against the winch plate on the bumper? That's not good. So it's actually kind of scratched up the bumper a little bit already. So even though you can do this, you can clearly see why it is that they don't want you to. So I'm going to go ahead and take this panel off of here. And not only that, but it's going to give me, see those two pockets right there? There's one here and one down there. Those are your access pockets to get up to the bottom of the winch to put your bolts in. And it's really, really difficult to do. And having this plate in the way is not helping out anything. So I got to take that off of there and get that out of the way. But the winch itself went in nice and smooth. Everything fits really, really good. Plenty of clearance all the way around, and I think I'm even going to have clearance to get the screws in the back here once I put the solenoid box on it. So that seems to fit really good at least. So let me pop that metal panel off down there, and then I got to get up in here and try to figure out how to get my big hands in here to get to these. Okay, so here's the current status. Those access pockets right there are not nearly big enough for me to get my hands in. You can see I got the front two bolts started, but those back two bolts, which you can barely see, are all the way back against that plate. And then you've got this frame horn section here in the way. So there's just no way for me to maneuver my arms. You'd have to have like 5 or 6 joints in your arms to do this. I can't even maneuver my arm up in there to get the bolts in the back started. I even had my 12-year-old son give it a whirl for me, and he couldn't get in there and do it either. So, word of advice, if you're going to put a winch on this bumper, despite what the instructions say, put the winch on first. I had that thought go through my head, and I almost did it, and I wish I had listened to myself. Put the winch on the bumper first, and then put it all on the Jeep. So I guess I'm going to have no choice but to unbolt this thing and slide it back off again, which really sucks because now I don't have any adult help at the moment, but I may try to use a floor jack and get up under here and do it. So something that should be really easy turned in to be kind of a pain in the rear end. Hey Quadratech, if you're listening, Quit letting midgets build your stuff. You're gonna have full-grown men working on this thing, guys. Come on, give us some room in here. All right, so it sucks to have to redo something twice, but taking this bumper off proved to be a whole lot faster, because once I had it on the ground here and I have access to it, it was way easier to get the winch bolts started from up underneath. So I got that secure, and now I'm going to go ahead and do my connections here. Now this is color coded, obviously, so you can see this one is red and that one is yellow, and then this one up here is black, and your cables are all color coded, so it's a cakewalk. You just hook these things up here. I'm gonna go ahead and get this done and get these tucked nicely out of the way, and then all that'll be left is my positive and my negative going to the battery. And I'm gonna have to get some help to lift this back on. We used the floor jack to get it off, but it didn't go as smooth as I expected, and I had one moment where this thing slid off the jack and it was a little scary. So I'm gonna get some help to put it back on, but I'll go ahead and do the connections, do everything I can while this thing is on the ground, and then we'll put it back on. But yeah, so far it's going better. So as far as how I routed my power to the battery, of course, you've got your main power wire here and the negative coming off the bottom of the motor. What I did was I ran them, and my father helped me with this. We put some heater hose around them because there's some sharp edges that they're going to be running against. So the heater hose will just protect them from getting frayed. But then we went basically up under the air box. It doesn't take very long to take this air box out. It's just one 10mm bolt there, 8mm over here. You can pull the whole air box out. So we ran the cables up under the air box, and of course there's the negative, and you have a circuit breaker you have to run with your positive in case you overload the winch. So, you know, that part was pretty simple, and then obviously all the other wires just come straight out of the solenoid box to the motor. So the wiring is really simple and really straightforward, nothing to that. Anybody can do that part. All right guys, so I finally got that job finished up. Ended up using every tool in my toolbox. I mean, it was just crazy. So the bumper went really smooth, and the winch installation did not. Here's a couple of problems that I ran into. First of all, obviously I had to take the bumper back off to get the winch on, because there's no room to bolt it up with the winch on there. So that was kind of a pain. Had to get my father to come help me lift it back on there, because now it's almost 200 pounds. And then once we got it on there, we realized that all these cables coming out of the solenoid box were pushed up into the grill, and they were actually pressing against the grill, so that was no good. So after considering all of my options, I elected to turn the box around, which gave me plenty of space. It doesn't look the best, but you can see I've got about an inch of space in there now. So that kind of didn't go as planned either, but it's functional, it works. So, and it was better than trying to drill out new holes, because actually, might be kind of hard to tell, but the way they've got these holes mounted, the winch is way back toward the rear of the winch plate. There's still plenty of room. They could have moved the actual winch itself forward an inch. That would have given more room back there for your cables and everything, but they didn't, and I guess it was going to be really hard to drill holes through that thick plate. Plus, I didn't want to mess up the finish on this thing because they E-coat them for corrosion resistance. So anyway, long story short, I turned the box around. Doesn't look the best. Maybe I'll find another place to put that box one day, but I searched around under there, couldn't really find a suitable spot, and I just wanted to kind of get it finished up tonight and get it functional. So, you know, ran into a couple of snags, but all in all, it wasn't too terribly bad. I just followed the directions for wiring everything up, and it works pretty good. Listen to how noisy it is. I guess a lot of winches are noisy though, but you know, it makes quite a bit of noise. But like I said, I guess a lot of them do. But that's not a big deal. I mean, it's a good winch for a good price, should serve me really well, and I'm just glad to finally have this job done. So after I put the winch and the bumper on there, for those of you who are curious, I took a measurement from the ground to the lip of the fender, and in total this combo dropped the front of my Jeep 3/8 of an inch. So, you know, not even a full ½ inch of drop. So I'm really happy with that. And the truck still has a really good stance. As you can see, it really didn't drop the front end that much at all. You know, it doesn't look bad at all. So everything worked out pretty good, and I'm really happy with it. Now I just have to get some D-rings because those are sold separately. So I'll probably do that later this week. And I may go ahead and get one of those cheap covers to put on my winch just to keep the weather off of it before winter comes. Don't want to get snow and salt and everything on it unnecessarily. So other than that, there you go, guys. Quadratec QRC bumper for the JL JT and the Badlands ZXR 12,000 pound capacity winch. Installation went, you know, about the way you would expect, I guess. You always end up having a few snags, but all in all, not too terribly bad. Hey, if you guys have any questions about installation that I didn't cover, or anything you want to know about the winch or what have you, post a question below, let me know, and I'll try to get those answered for you. I appreciate it, guys. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you later. I gotta go get all these tools cleaned up now before it gets